Matter was Miss Dawes.
Okay. Mr. Chair, we are ready.
That's not it. Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. What time is it? It's
3:38.
3:38. Okay, cool. Andres, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it very much. We specifically wanted to reach out to you and have a discussion. And I think when you were reached out to, we had a specific building in mind, I believe, to have this conversation. So let us do some housekeeping here with the agenda, if you would. So minutes, guys, did you guys read the minutes? We need a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Larry and Eric, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Was
so
that both sets of minutes or just one of them? Because you had two sets.
why would we have two sets?
Because you had a special meeting.
Oh, I guess.
Yeah,
And
no,
it's listed on your agenda.
This is for both meetings or just the one?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Well, how do you want one set of minutes or
I
two?
want to do both. I will do both.
second.
Okay, for both sets of minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we got, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Two meetings.
No public hearings, so first item of business is Andreas. And we specifically had a building in mind here in Woodland Park to kind of run you through with ideas of how something like this could work. Can you hear me okay? Okay, so this particular building, we refer to it as the Voss Building. The ladies, many of us knew her first name was Clara Voss, and she had an antique store in there. But the building goes back before that, and I believe Steve referred to it as one of those original roundhouse. Is that right? Roundhouse, or it had a specific use in regards to the railroad coming through town and the grade that it was on and the curve that it's on. So it's kind of a triangular, for lack of a better way to describe it. It's sort of kind of a funky triangular shaped building. So having said that, it is privately owned right now. And it's a wreck of a building, from what we understand. Sewage issues, perhaps, water issues, perhaps, leaky roof, perhaps. But it's also a building that's unique to us. And it is a one-of-a-kind building, and there aren't very many of these buildings left, from what we understand. So we wanted to understand and use that building as an example of what would be the steps and what would be the things that would need to be identified and who would champion something like this. So this is an exercise to help us understand, if that makes sense. Did I couch that kind of right?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Can you all hear me well?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the summary there. So I think this is already off to a promising start. You mentioned it was privately owned, but did you guys recently acquire it? I couldn't really catch what had happened there. Do you guys own it, or is it still privately owned?
It is.
Okay, and you guys are just trying to help somebody get the funds to rehabilitate it, bring it back to
Well,
its glory, let's say.
Well, one, Andreas, it's privately owned. Two, at this point, we really don't know what the interest level might or might not be of the individual. But we can't be very proactive if we don't understand the process either.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is it listed locally or at any level as a historic site?
No.
It was inventoried, and in my email to you, I thought I sent you
Oh.
links to the appropriate documents that,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. That might be with it.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. What was that?
It's a side conversation that's not completely relevant.
Oh. Okay. So I think the first step, I mean, in terms of looking at this from beginning to end, if you guys are going to pass this information along to the owner, the first step is designation. Getting it listed either at the local level, state level, or if there's a case to be made for a national designation, you can do that. Each one of those processes is a little different in terms of timeline. At the local level, I'm sure you guys are more familiar with what that looks like. At the state, national level, we run those programs here in a side office right behind mine. If they wanted to go that route, we do have grants that can help fund some of the work that goes into getting a building designated, doing the research, writing the nomination, presenting the nomination, all that stuff. We have non-competitive grants that are available year-round to fund that kind of work. That's the first step. In order to access any other funds, you have to have the designation. Do you guys have any questions there, or do you want me to keep going?
So local designation, but it also has to have the state designation, right?
It can be just the local one. That's fine.
Okay.
So if that's the best process to take, you guys can totally do that. And then once you have that designation, it opens the property up to SHF grants, which can be used to rehabilitate the building, and if more planning needs to be done, if a historic structure assessment needs to be done, hazardous material kind of thing. We have grants for all of these things that might be necessary. Usually the first step after designation is kind of a top to bottom assessment of the building. If that has never been done before, we do have another non-competitive grant. It's a different grant type, but it's a very similar process as the one I just mentioned, specifically for historic structure assessments. And so that would be a top to bottom look at priority items, and even some sort of ideas for long-term planning. And then from there, sometimes people go on to do another planning grant. You know, the historic structure assessment identifies the needs, and then you get another planning grant to do some construction documents for something that was identified in that historic structure assessment. And so all of these are non-competitive grants, the ones that I've mentioned. So that means they're available year-round. For all of our grants, since it's a private owner, they would need to be partnered with a nonprofit, which I'm assuming maybe would be you guys applying on their behalf. No? Are you guys just passing this information along?
Andreas, we're not a nonprofit.
I see.
But our local UPass Historical Society is a local nonprofit. We could probably serve as a catalyst to possibly kickstart this. So,
sure.
so the owner would need to partner
with a nonprofit or a local government agency that would essentially receive the funds and be the person that we contact. They would kind of be the fiscal agent for the project. We just can't give the money directly to a private owner. Yeah. Okay,
so the city of Woodland Park could be the holder of those funds. So that was
right.
That's a nonprofit, or it could be in our case, the city.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Let's see, what else? Yeah, so that's for any of our grant types, whether it's competitive or non-competitive. So a lot of projects start through a series of non-competitive grants. Usually the very first one, it's a planning grant to pay for the designation. And then you go through that whole process. Once the building is designated, then you can apply for another non-competitive grant to do the historic structure assessment. You go through that whole process. And then maybe another non-competitive planning grant to do your first sort of construction documents. Or if research needs to be done into materials or paint analysis, whatever, those kinds of things, cost estimates, all of those things can fall under a planning grant. And all of these are non-competitive grants. Essentially, it's a pretty friendly process if they apply and more information is needed. Instead of an outright denial, it's more of just we contact them again and say, can you redo this section? So it's meant to be a fairly friendly process. And that's usually the path most new projects take. And then once you go through all that, you're pretty well versed in our process by that point. And then you can come in for the larger competitive grants, which are up to $250,000, which can be used to actually work on the building, roof, windows, doors, whatever, foundation, all that stuff. All of our projects need to adhere to the Secretary of the Interior standards. So when they are thinking about these projects, you're going to want to make sure that it's people who are familiar with those, who can write the grant, presenting it in a way that shows that the project is going to adhere to that. As long as you're doing those things, the private owner's lined up with a nonprofit, there's really sort of no issues that I can see in terms of making this project more competitive, something that the State Historical Fund would want to fund. Big part of the project is asking about public benefit, which can sometimes be an issue with privately owned buildings. I'm not sure how it's used right now. Is it open to the public?
It's not occupiable.
It's vacant.
Okay, well, do you guys know what would be, maybe, are there ideas for the end use of this?
Well, it depends on who you talk to, but the square footage of this thing is, number one, not very large. It was used most recent for a small restaurant bar type of situation. Parking is extremely limited based on,
Yeah.
You'd understand if you saw. And
yeah, I'm looking at a picture of it on Google Maps.
oh, okay, so even if that thing was raised, that piece of property, in my opinion, even if you built something, what would you build? It'd be pretty small, and parking is going to continue to be an issue with whatever would be there. So
Probably just make a parking lot.
yeah, you could probably only park maybe another 7 cars in there or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So as far as a benefit to the community, based on, Steve is here now, and what's it called? Roundhouse? What was it back in the day? There's a term for that building that was in your write-up.
A flat iron.
Flat iron.
But it's not really that shape.
Okay, but
This is a 5-sided. It's just the initial appearance of it makes it look like a flat iron building.
Flat iron building?
Yeah.
Okay, so it would serve probably more to the entrance of Old Town Woodland Park, right where the bend was for the railroad, in the horseshoe that went through Woodland Park years ago, but the highway followed. And it's sitting, what the Cultural Center, which was built as a school here years ago. If it was used for anything, there's an upstairs to it as well, Andres. It's so that there would be 2 levels to that building. So if there was a partnership, would it be conducive to the UPass Historical Society to have it as an extension of their museum? Because we don't have an official large museum here, so it potentially be another satellite like that if there was interest in something like that. I'm not speaking, everybody here can have an opinion. I'm just throwing it out so you can kind of understand that it's only limited to people who would want to save it as to how you would want to use it.
And the zoning.
Is it for sale for? Does anybody know? Steve, you know how much they're selling it for?
I heard it, but I'd be guessing again. It was something like $750 or something like that.
Is there any option for our city to purchase this through grants with the state?
We do have, it's part of our competitive grants, so it's not a separate thing, but they're called acquisition projects, I guess. So those can go up to $250,000. That's the maximum we can award. So there's some different requirements for that if you guys decide to go down that path, especially considering this isn't listed yet as a historic property. We would need to talk and make sure that all the ducks are in a row, because a prerequisite to all of our projects is that the property has to be listed, or at least the process for designating it has to have been started already. You can say, you know, there's still a couple more meetings left, some papers to sign, but the process is underway to make this a historic building, then we can let it go through. So I think we would just have to talk, if you guys decide to go that path, a little bit more about making sure that everything's lined up.
So Andreas, is there more dollars out there available, or just this one source for a max of 250 for acquisition?
For acquisitions, not that I know of specifically. I think we provide the largest single largest dollar amount for that type of project. There might be some other places that you can sort of scrounge together, or there might be funds that are not specifically dedicated to that, but maybe an argument can be made, but I have not heard of anything. The other thing I'll say is, I mean, you guys don't have to have the public benefit quite figured out yet, but I was just looking at it. It's a really visible, it looks like it's one of the main intersections, or it's a very visible intersection, at least it looks like here. So just with the amount of traffic that would probably go by, you have an argument there in saying there is a public benefit to preserving the structure. Everybody sees it when they drive past it. If they just tear it down, it would be noticeable that it's missing, that kind of a thing. So I think there's a couple different pathways we can take here, even though it's privately owned. And then something that it's not really my area specifically, but the person who runs this program sits right next to me, is we also have a tax credits program, which may be another source of funding for this building. The programs are a little bit different. With the grants, you tell us what you want to do, and then we give you the money. With the tax credits, you pay for it yourself, and then you get a reimbursement at the end. And you can use both of these together. So you can get grant money and then come in afterwards for the tax credits. If that's something that the owner is interested in talking about, we can set up a meeting with my colleague and talk to them more detail about what that means. But that's another way that you can sort of double up and maximize the incentives that are available. Essentially, you would get the grant money, and then you'd get a tax credit return from that project.
So if, in my wildest dreams, if the city wanted to pursue this building, and the city could apply for this 250,000, let's assume this owner would sell it for 250,000 for the acquisition, then could the city turn around? Would they have to sell those tax benefits, or would they what are they going to do with that?
Those are two different things. The acquisition is a grant, not the tax. It's not a tax credit.
Right.
But in terms of tax credits in general, they can be sold if it's like a nonprofit that is running it. But or that owns the site, or if somebody who doesn't need the tax credits for whatever reason, they can be sold. There's brokers here in Colorado that exchange those with developers and other people who are looking to buy tax credits. So we can get that conversation going as well. But if you were to get the acquisition grant, then there are some stipulations that come with that in terms of, I think there's a perpetual easement that comes with that. Essentially, you would have to check with us. We have a review process that you'd go through. That's forever on the property for major changes that are made or anything. All those details are laid out when you get these grants, part of the contract. So, there's other caveats kind of, but nothing. If you're not doing an acquisition, if you're just getting our grants for designating the building, doing an HSA, a historic structure assessment, doing some planning, if that's all you're using the grants for, there's no property protections that get put on.
Andreas, my question on the acquisition grant is what type of a match is required?
I believe that is, let's see, the 25% for nonprofit or governments. 25% in this case, it would be of the purchase price. And that those funds can come from other grants, loans, other sources. As long as you have them available at the time you sign the contract, it's considered good to go.
Okay, thank you.
It's not listed anywhere anymore.
What?
That property.
Isn't
What
listed.
did you say, Frank?
It's not listed in any commercial
Oh, listed for sale.
listed for
Okay.
sale. It was at one point, but I do remember that the sign is now missing. That used to be on that building, so.
Contracts must have expired.
We'd have to research all that again.
Additional questions, thought processes?
I did get some good information on tax credits when you wrote there, so you can respond to some of that after it's fine.
So if we, Andreas, if we brainstormed with some possibilities as a group as to something that we could promote here, could we just, one of us or somebody from us, our group, or Karen or somebody, just get hold of you and bounce it off of you to see if we're even
Yeah,
inside the guardrails here?
of course. Yeah. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
always happy to have that conversation.
Okay, because it's a tricky situation, because we would be wanting to kind of promote it, but we'd have to find the right partners and find out. I mean, if it's not even listed for sale, I mean, we can dig in to find out what's owed on it. We know there's problems with the building, you know, maybe somebody wants to just dump it. We don't know. The
Yeah.
details.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, take this back, and I'm happy to have a follow-up meeting with whoever, with the owner as well. Like I said, I can bring along Sarah is the person who runs the tax credit program for us. I can bring her, and we can talk about both programs in more detail. We can go through timelines and all these things. But yeah, it's really important to find the right partners. But I think that you guys have a couple different options, so brainstorming is good, and then just get back to me when you're ready, and we can keep going.
Okay. Any other questions for Andre or? We appreciate your time. I'm glad you stuck with
Sure.
the phone situation and glad we got you on there finally, because I think that we have some interest in trying to make something work before the building just continues to dilapidate, so.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. I mean, I'm always here. I'm the contact for your area, so just give me a call if you need anything.
Okay. Andreas, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
See you all.
Okay.
Bye.
So it sounds like it's really only limited to our imagination and finding
Ooh.
willing partners to, and promote the value of why it might be
It just sits there as a welcome building, and I don't know how many neighbors said, what's the problem with that building? If there's a parking lot, it doesn't do much of a welcome. It could be like a welcome center or something, welcome to Woodland Park, whether it be a business or whatever, a neat building, an older building. What's the year of construction?
1939.
39. I mean,
That's what it is.
it has a character, because you're at the stoplight, you think, oh, look at this building, that type of thing,
3,100 square feet, Class C building,
Did you find a listing? Frank?
no listing. It's not listed currently. It's got two dates. Let's see if they make sense. 1939 and 1968.
On the addition.
The addition was in the 90s.
Yeah, that's what it says.
The addition was in the 90s. The original 1939 part is the two-story box. Everything you see is two-story. and it had nothing on the, outside of it. The addition was done by a guy named O'Neill, that I had something to do with on that, on it, doesn't make it good. That was, that part of it was code, so it'd be code conforming at the time, it was built. The plumbing is good, the electrical's good.
Yeah, so what is it, building class C? Because that's what this is classified as.
I mean, Class C.
That's just what it says, building class C. Capital C.
Whose website
Commercial
are you
is what
looking
that's
at?
gonna be.
Commercial website.
That's their nomenclature, the building,
And it was for sale.
the building code designation is something different. At any rate, that part is good, especially has value in terms of the restrooms and so on. The original 1939 is, there's little that's good about it. The windows are totally dilapidated, the floor structure is questionable. I don't really know the condition of the roof.
Well, the
it
tax
has a
assessment
quality.
on it's only 317,000. So that's not really a whole lot of money. It's 3,100 square feet. Six spaces.
What's the taxes? on it?
317 is the tax assessment. 317,000.
The reason I asked that, that's good to know for the tax credits, you could trade those tax credits and you get 80% or 85% of that figure you just said.
And
That
that
would be available to use. or
And
be
that,
able to
and
use
that one-time grant, that's 250 grand, that seems like more than enough money to.
I would suggest that Larry's on track as far as it being a civic thing or welcome center. Linda was on board with that of saying, oh, the museum, make use of an extension of what's in History Park in some fashion like that. The other thing that's a big deal about going with that, Karen might be able to speak to that, it's gonna need to work with the whole city parking. As you had mentioned, that is very limited. Where that could be looked at from the city standpoint, where a private owner wouldn't have any grounds for appeal on that. If the building was gone, you can't, there's no way you could do more than a kiosk. They
There's
probably
six,
put a drive-through
six
kiosk.
spots that belong, 6 parking spots that belong to that building.
But if
One,
the city-
1.87 per thousand
if
square.
they did have it, if the city did own it, they could vacate that if they wanted to, and then you'd have your parking.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to destroy that building. I think we could do something.
No, I mean, not destroy the building, I mean vacate Midland Avenue like that.
Oh, yeah,
And
no,
then stretch down to whatever the next street down is.
yeah, well, that's, that's all in front of the library and everything else. It's in front of the Youth Pass Historical, the Youth Pass Center, that I would have thought that, the city'd be okay with having that building now that's directly across is, whether or not you have the parking, and there is enough parking for everything we've done at the youth center, excuse me, and the library. When the library has big things happening, every single parking spots,
Yeah.
Grandma's Kitchen, good thing they closed early because those parking spots are filled too. So is Joni's across the street and behind Joni's. So all of that parking is filled for all those things.
Yeah.
So I would have thought that keeping that building for a historical, another museum or a welcome center coming into town, that would be open longer than, even our Chamber of Commerce, Deb Miller complains about the small retail shop she has in there for, I said, well, don't go to Cripple Creek because they just recalled all the people because they were selling trinkets up at their visitor center. I said, so.
Just FYI, to be eligible for tax credits, there has to be a for-profit business going on
Inside that,
for tax credit applications.
I wonder if the Historical Society's gift shop would qualify as
for profit enterprise.
for-profit
So,
enterprise
yeah.
within a nonprofit.
Yes, what we learned was that if it's owned by the city, if it's leased to
Nonprofit.
nonprofit, yes, then that makes the tax credits eligible. But they're highly competitive. But it doesn't mean you can't get them. You can start applying for the tax credits before the building's even designated. So you want to, if you think you're gonna go after the tax credits, you want to do it as soon as possible.
Well, what would preclude us? Andrea said a local designation or a state designation. It didn't matter. You don't have to have both.
Correct.
So typically, the owner of the property would be the one that would apply for said designation.
Mhm.
But I think we'd have to go read the paperwork. I think.
I thought we could
somebody else
designate
can
and they would have to accept it if they wanted the sign stuck on there.
I have to go back and read it also, but if I remember right, somebody else can make applications,
There you go.
but that
You're right.
doesn't get to whether or not council would ultimately approve it
Gotcha.
and what, because the owner has a right to certainly know about those hearings, both in front of
Right.
HBC and city council.
Right.
And they may express other opinions.
Sure.
And, private property rights are considered a very important value.
Right.
In Intermountain
if you-
West, and so, you may be stepping on toes with that.
Remember, I don't know, 6 months, 7 months ago, when a lot of ridicule came down to the owners of that building through the public,
DDA,
yeah, I'm not gonna name names of the people on DDA.
I'm just broadly.
Yeah,
DDA.
no, and they called them out, they made a big deal, these people were embarrassed by it, they even went on Facebook and said, hey, we're gonna go clean all this up. So they might be interested in having a way out. They've had that building for a very long time, and now they're getting ready to pay
And they only paid-
property tax on it, which
They
is 3
paid
times
less
more
than-
than what it's worth at this
They
point.
paid less than 3 for it.
What's that?
They paid less than 3 for it.
Yeah, and I can see that the assessment's not even much higher than that at
Well, we
this
could
point.
pull up to find out what the number is that
Oh,
they did
absolutely.
pay for it, right?
Oh, yeah.
So if we're serious, we just need to figure out an approach and.
Well, I would certainly want to know exactly what our goal is, as a committee, and want to know if we have that knowledge and know exactly what it takes to make this designated and get money to help them fix it up, or turn around to sell it to us, or we make an offer to buy it if we can get enough grant money, we should at least reach out to them and tell them, here are some of the things the city can help you do.
Sure.
And
So,
see if they
Karen,
would-
to the point that we now have a grant writer on staff here at the city, Kimberly, right? So if there's acquisition, a max of 250,000 for acquisition available, plus anything else that might be out, if we had a plan, assuming we can put something together, Kimberly could potentially be a resource to try to find additional funding for acquisition if we needed a decent amount of money to acquire it, but we have to have a plan as to its use and its value. And one of the things Andreas, he stressed was community value and why it's important to keep and educate people on. And Steve, you sent out Clara Voss's history and the building's history. You emailed that, I think, last fall. And I thought you sent it to the committee. We need to probably get our hands back on that, because we're having trouble finding it. So you could do that again, that'd be great. But if, what do you guys think? I mean, do we want to poke around and?
I think we need to contact this guy, with a tentative plan, what we'd like to do. Is there any interest in that human being to follow?
Do we know who this owner is, by the way?
Is this person in California? Where is he?
I'm sure I could find out, because the
It's on the
DDA.
assessor's
contacted me.
office
Yeah, it's-
website.
Okay.
Absentee owner
I
for
just,
sure.
I just wondered if we knew if any of us knew.
Or just a formative letter saying, we're really looking at doing these things, and we need your agreement that we need the designation for sure. And go for the designation. If this person doesn't want to show any interest, then we're into trouble.
But they might be,
But
if
we
we,
could buy them,
but Larry, if we approached them in such a way to say, hey, there
we'll take it
might
off
be,
your hands.
well, we might be able to do that if we can get some funding pulled together. Are you even interested?
And would you
That
be,
doesn't hurt.
Would you be overstepping your boundaries by not going through the city manager or the city, Karen, you know,
To do what?
to approach those people like she just mentioned?
To just have an informal conversation to say, is there any
To
interest?
designate the property as historic? 'Cause
Well,
that would
no,
be the
no,
only
the
thing I'd
first-
be concerned about right now.
The only, to me, the first question is, hey, you know what? I'm part of the historical preservation group. That building's kind of near and dear to a few people. Are you interested in working with us?
Yeah.
To explore options of possibly ways you could sell the building and we could possibly acquire the building. And if there's an interest, then you've opened the door. If there's not an interest,
I think you're overstepping a little bit in terms
Okay.
of us possibly acquiring the building. In terms of, would you like to have this listed? Do you want to talk about other grants? That's all safe territory.
okay,
But in terms of, and I'm
The right
assuming
words.
us, being the city acquiring it, that's where you're outside.
well, the other part of that would be probably for us to have a conversation with the Historical Society. To see if they have an interest, if these dots can be connected, because they could be the nonprofit then that would ultimately own the
Lease
building.
it, they would lease it
They would lease it.
from the city.
The city would
If the
have
city
to
owned
be
it.
the buyer, the way you guys understand it.
For tax credits,
For just the tax credit.
just the tax credits.
Now, we can partner with the owner of the building and get it fixed if we get the grants after it's been designated. We're allowed to do that. That's either the government or a nonprofit.
And as a private owner, they would be able to apply for the tax credits without any city involvement, government involvement.
So there's a lot of things that the owner probably doesn't know. But the biggest thing is to start out as a historical building. And at that point, we can give them the information, but Karen's right. We can't make a decision until, because it would take actually me writing an ordinance and presenting it to the council on behalf of our committee to buy that property. And I think if we have a private government partnership and do what he said about the grants to help fix it up, that would probably be the easiest route. But there is no route if they do not want to be considered a historic property. I think we all learned that. But from our standpoint as a committee, I agree with Karen. Front and center, it should be, would you like to be designated as a historical building? And if you do, and the city does approve it, we can show you grants and how we can partner with you to get all your problems fixed. Hopefully.
That's.
I think that's a broad statement.
That's what I was.
I think we can-
That's how it was made broad on purpose.
I know, no, and like, not in a good way. I think we can connect them with folks at the state who can help them address issues with the building. To
Oh,
commit
yeah,
to
no.
fixing all the problems.
No, I
you
was
need-
not, no, I was, all I did was say, and if you heard, the whole thing I said was give them the information they need to get the grants. I was not going to provide us, no, that's not how you work it.
And to that point, Frank, this would be the first time where we as a committee are trying to be a little bit more proactive to help something happen.
Right, I
And
agree.
how we go about doing that needs a conversation or several conversations like this, so we don't overstep our bounds and so that we would approach it in the most constructive way we possibly
It
can.
might actually be a good idea to find the owner and invite him to one of our meetings,
There you go.
you know, and discuss it as a group with them.
Sure.
You know, have them bring a real estate agent. if
Well,
concerned
they're
about
either
it,
going to
right?
have an interest in,
Well, absolutely.
and they'll have a historical interest or they won't, but they might have an interest from the tax credit perspective and from the designation, because the designation will not preclude them from doing anything to the building. They can raise the building if they
Oh,
want,
I know.
right? I mean, nothing is locked in for them as an owner with a designation.
That's right.
The designations just gives them, opens the door for potential opportunities
Right.
for dollars, right?
And we can show them all the grants that are available. You know, and discuss that with them. so
Well,
they
and
know.
then direct them towards
Right,
Andreas
absolutely.
and things of that nature. If an owner wants to keep it and do something, if an owner is willing to sell it, then that's another, pigeonhole.
He has to partner with either a government or a nonprofit, so somebody's gonna have to help them. It just can't go, here's the state, go get your stuff.
right, exactly.
Yeah,
And
it has
that's-
to be a partnership, and I think that's what Andre was saying, that that's the most important thing after the designation.
And I don't know. I think it would, if there was an interest on our group, and we had an owner that wanted to dump it, we would have to sell it to the city. And Frank, or whoever's on this committee, we would have to figure out how we would want to try to champion something like that, or if we even wanted to try to help make it happen. And it might be a matter that we pitch it and sell it to the Historical Society to possibly pursue it too. I would like us to just think about the possibilities of how we might do something. It's another example that if we don't do something, right, wrong, or indifferent, it's just a matter of time that building's gone.
Steve,
I
I did
want a
meet
letter
with two
going
people.
out with what Frank said. Keep it simple, as Karen said. These are the options. Where are you at? We can't do any more until we hear from this owner.
Yeah.
So get the letter out as soon as possible,
I certainly
summarizing what Frank
I wouldn't
said.
recommend buying this building in its present state, because the city can't afford it.
No, really, we have interest in designating and the tax credit. This simple, no, these are possible. Are you interested in this? If we says no, or she says no, well, where are we at? I mean,
Yeah.
we need an input from this owner more than anything else right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we met with Jean Miller after she came into our meeting a couple months ago, and she was very interested in
Now,
purchasing.
she
the
was
property.
a potential buyer of the building
Mhm.
for the purpose of a bar/restaurant or something, right?
Right. Because one of the women had a food truck business, right?
Jean Miller.
Jean?
Her husband.
Okay.
Wasn't that prior to them identifying there was a sewer backup or other issues there?
I don't know.
The last I spoke to her, she was thinking all this was a sign that it wasn't the way she needed to go, the sewer backup and all this stuff.
It is interesting that the sign is now gone, for the for
Yeah.
sale sign, and, they did clean it up, but they haven't done much of anything else.
But is everyone on board with trying to save this building? Everybody in this room?
It breaks my heart that we have these buildings in town that are, in our city, even the ones that are designated, the city gives no money to help do any of that. I mean, we just did the inspection of all the downtown buildings, and, the least we could say is, man, you gotta paint the trim, you gotta do this maintenance, and, and
Well-
any time they could say, well, fine, here, we don't wanna do any of it, take your sign back, but,
Would everybody at this table be willing to work to save that building?
oh, absolutely, I would be.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
How do you guys feel,
I
Rick?
would be, yeah, and it's all because of what you said, when they said it had no value and it needed to go, and you said you remember walking by there and remembering it from when you were a kid. That's kind of good enough for me, to not see it get just wiped off the.
Well, you need
earth.
preservation with a purpose, though. As
Yeah.
much as I like preserving everything, I would preserve everything. But it's gotta have a purpose and a function and would the city be willing to get on board with your committee here?
I still think it's a welcome center site on the outside, welcome to Woodland Park, come on in, that type of thing. I don't know, but that's pie in the sky, but aim high, something like that. It doesn't have to be a big truck, then it's not a business, no tax credit, but no. You're right by the stoplight, and here's this building looking right at you. And it says, welcome to Woodland Park. It has a little sign for the visitor center, but that's off one little side. But if you had that big building there way back, years back on the committee, maybe Lori remembers, somebody wanted to do a painting of Women of the Night in all the windows. That was their thing. They wanted the building with the ladies in the windows saying hi. it didn't take off, but that was a proposal for the building, a decade ago?
Something like that, yeah.
Wow.
David?
Got the qualms in how far that goes, because of what the condition of the existing building is and what we're representing with that. No desire to see anything torn down either. Like to work on stuff to rehabilitate it. Is that reasonable, expensive, feasible? In other words, that is out to reach, because that's a lot of work there just to bring it up to basic life health safety aspects. Larry, it should be a visitor center. But the work that it takes to get that without an eye of where that could come from is a awesome mission for a grant writer.
But it's more easily converted to a welcome center than it is to maintain it as a restaurant. Because to get the designation, those additions would have to come off, right?
Yeah.
So you.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I don't think so for city designation. Right?
Or even for state, I don't think.
No, you could have additions on a building as long as you could see that it is an addition and not part of the original
Original.
structure.
Right.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like we have an interest in continuing to pursue something at some
That's
level.
for ways, just
Just,
try.
if we don't try, we'll regret, I mean, we should at least try, it seems to me, and it sounds like we have some consensus to do some additional research. And I know, Steve, you've already done a whole lot of research on Mrs. Voss, and have that, you, like I said, if you can get that back out to us to refresh everybody's memory about because I know you wrote it up, and she was quite the lady, and the things she accomplished for this community as well. So a case could certainly, if Steve could make a case for the Roberts house, Mrs. Voss is on steroids, in my opinion,
Yeah,
of what can
yeah.
be, what
That's what
can
she's
be,
done for the community.
for what you can pitch for her and that building.
Of all the things she did.
All the things she did.
Steve, I can save you the trouble. I've got your Word document.
Oh, good. Thank
I'll
you.
send it out.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I
Cross that
do.
off.
What date was that?
What?
The email.
Oh, I don't
Oh,
have
you
it
don't
in
know?
email. We put it in our files.
Oh,
And the date on the file is November 9th, 23.
Well, that's better file keeping than the DDS.
so it was
With the
November.
the
All I
DDA
remembered
would
it was
be
before
Cog
Christmas.
train, we don't know who it belongs to, and all of a
I
sudden.
think that's when I
magically,
wrote it up. Karen.
I'm sorry.
I think that's when I authored it, I think.
Well, that's the save date on the file in
Oh,
our
okay.
system, so
It's somewhere in that time frame. Yeah.
What,
Yeah.
what was it?
November 9th.
Oh,
23.
So how about, Steve, you know a lot of information about the building, or don't you?
Well, I know a little bit. In fact, there was another addition besides the obvious addition. I have a newspaper clipping of Mrs. Voss and John and Claire Voss just finished their addition to their house. And I can't remember the year, but yeah, I got some information on the building and stuff. Then they used to have a travel port right in front of it, right where Highway 24 pavement is now, auto camp, as they used to call
Huh, Before they widened the highway.
them. Before the highway came up that way,
Up that way.
it used to come up West Street.
Oh, okay. All right, so we kind of have
I mean, Fairwork Street. That was, that was the entrance from the Springs, and the exit west was West Street.
gotcha. So we kind of have consensus that we'll just keep working on.
The contact needs to be made.
We'll find out who. I'll do some digging around too. And,
It should say on Frank, if you were on the assessor side a few minutes ago, it was,
Yeah, I can certainly say the information I had.
okay. Cool, all right. Karen, anything else to add? about
Is
that?
there any action item there that you want staff to do?
209 West Midland. That's the address in case in East Midland, excuse me, 209 East Midland is the actual address.
so this would be the entrance into Woodland Park.
Right, it still is.
I think that amongst us, we can pull together some preliminary info.
And what info
Owner.
would that be?
Owner, current building. Who owns 209 East
Okay.
Midland right now? Who owns the Boss Building? Find out if they're local, ascertain. If they're local, then if there's a possibility, we might want to invite them to a meeting, but it might be better to have a one-on-one or two-on-one conversation with that individual or individuals as soon as we find out who it is.
Didn't that newspaper article several months ago say they were business owners in the Springs also?
Seems to me. Something like that, yeah. And we should go back and look on the assessor site. I think it'll tell what they paid for it, you know, the last buyers. Find out what their investment was, you know, just gathering some data. Type of thing. Maybe bringing that back at the next meeting. So that's all I meant by that.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure I'm tracking with you.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, of not doing anything drastic other than just getting some preliminary data about stuff, and you share the PDF, and that'll refresh our memory. Sound good? I'll go from there.
Is there, does anybody have evidence of what was on the real estate sign or who an agent was working on that? Because that would be a form of public information that would be help with the contacts. What's really going on with the owners is there's an owner name and address, but who is really the point of contact on
Who was
sales?
that?
I think it was Michael Harper.
Oh, was it Michael?
Michael? Really?
I think you're right.
At one point,
Come to think of
it
it. I
doesn't
think
mean
you're
that
right.
it stayed that way, but at
You think
one
it was
point over
Michael?
at one point over the last 2 years, I could have sworn Michael Harper's picture was in the
I think you're
window.
right.
Doesn't mean it didn't change and there was a different broker at some point, but at some point, I'm highly
Yeah.
confident Michael was there.
Yeah.
And Michael's in long time.
Oh, yeah, he's easy to get along with, all supportive.
No, great guy.
We've got several things going on with him.
Okay, so he might be one to reach out to just to,
You would still know who the owner is.
yeah.
But I don't believe his sign was there this past year. It was a red and white sign with no face picture.
Except the old info, you know, short-term memory versus long-term.
Well,
That's good.
I have no memory. It's probably incorrect information I just gave you, but it sounded important.
Well, I think
Okay,
it's pretty neat that you guys are going after this. At least you're trying. And if it all fails and it's raised, at least you could say, we tried. So,
we've never tried to
This
do
whole
that,
time
and
first.
it's in our purview to try to encourage it, and we've never been very aggressive in it, so.
and what's your mission statement of this organization?
I don't have it memorized, but I do know that if you read those things, and go to the city website, guys. Karen's office put everything on there in terms of the bylaws and the mission statement and everything that's in there. And
I bet you it's got something to do with Oak Preserve.
I'm sure that was in there. Should we jump down to Saving Places Conference? Linda?
My brain's exploding.
It was successful?
Yes,
You enjoyed going?
yes, yes. Yep, this is the second year I took the tax credit class, and it made way more sense this time than the first time. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion about tax credits, and they are very, very exciting opportunities, and you can, you know, you can get, what was it, 35% of $1 million invested, given back to you. And I mean, it's just staggering numbers of money that you can retrieve, but they are highly competitive. So while they're a really good incentive, you want to be honest with people so that they know that there's a lot of people trying to get this, but there's what, I can't remember now what the number was, but 5 million, I think, a year that the state gives away in tax credits. And Polis and he was involved in the keynote speech the first day. It was mostly a campaign stop, but he is trying to get more money into that tax credit fund, another 2 or 3 million. So it's a very interesting program. And that's why I've taken it twice. So it's definitely something that we should look into more and encourage people to look into more. And it can be phased. You can apply multiple times for the same structure. And then you can indeed sell those tax credits at 85 cents on the dollar. So it's a pretty cool deal. It can fund a large portion of the restoration or renovation of a project. Then there's a lot of conversation. I also actually listened to this one today because I couldn't go to it because I was in another class. The wildfire mitigation plans, which we've never discussed in here about how to save the structures that we've already got designated. That's an enormous thing for us to look into at some point, I think, because you can get grant money to prepare surveys and prepare certain plans that you go over with local fire mitigation people so that certain structures are on the top of the list to be saved in the event of a fire. And so that's something we might want to look into at some point. I went to the Chautauqua, and that was amazing. Do you know the Chautauqua camp up there in Boulder? That's
Can you
pretty.
spell that, please?
Oh. CHATAUQUA. Look, let me confirm that for you. That was a really, 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 really cool tour. And the thing that I found interesting about that, not only just the history of the Chautauqua, so it is spelled. Did I say CHATAU? Oh, yeah. Yes, CHAUTAU.
Hang on, CHAU.
TAUQUA. And the thing that I really liked about that, other than just those amazing structures that they were saving, was they did talk a lot about the process. And this is a perfect example of a city-owned property that's leased to a nonprofit. So they went for all of it. They went for the grants, the tax credits, everything. And so that was kind of cool to see that in place, what it actually looked like. And they had privately owned people too. So it's just a hodgepodge of things, but it's beautifully managed. And they were also involved in that wildfire mitigation session because they've applied a lot of these plans to saving those structures, including surveying. Do you remember Steve Lloyd, that thing that he does with those 3D cameras? There's these 3D cameras that you can get out there and have people come in and they can
Yes.
show exactly every detail inside and out of the structure.
Yes.
And so part of their fire mitigation plan up there is the most important structures that they have, they're going to record. So in the event that a fire takes it out, they could actually rebuild it. So just stuff like that was really neat. What else did I do? The grant class, but that was focused mostly on museums and grants. I need to still learn a lot about grants. So that one was up. And then I did hear some interesting news. There's been so many roadblocks in preservation and getting things registered on either national, state, or local designation, that there's a real rumble in the preservation community to lighten the standards.
Really? Cool.
Yes. So that was the initial keynote, talking about, and raise of hands, who thinks that the standards are too high and how many structures have gone after to get designated, but because there were additions or other things were denied. And so now there's this discussion all the way to the Secretary of Interior to start lightening up on some of those rules, Because why are the people in 1898 more important than the people in 1920 or 1960 for that matter? And they had, they showed a couple landmarked structures, one that was 1960, that they're beginning to show leeway and allowing something that more recent to be landmarked because of its significance to the community. So that, I thought that was cool. That maybe things will be lightening up in the future on how to actually get something designated. So that was an interesting thing too. That's about it.
So there are valuable things that came out of some of the things that you learned that might feed into, started to think about in the future here, reaching out to specific property owners here in town to invite them to something, to hear about some of these.
Yes. Yeah, the tax credit thing is definitely interesting. They were highly encouraging of people. And one of the things that they did say is you can start applying for, there's an application process for the tax credits. You do not have to be designated at the time that you start that process of the tax credit application. But you work with the people directly to see what the possibilities down the road of it actually being designated. To get the tax credits, it has to be designated, but it doesn't have to be designated at the time of the application. And you can be doing work up to 2 years prior, and all of that money that you put into restoring that structure is eligible for the tax credit. So that's why it's so competitive, because they open it up to a lot of people. It does come on a first come, first served basis, has nothing to do with the specific value of the building, or if this building is more valuable than that building. It's whoever applies first.
Did they give a hint as to what part of the state gets a lot of those dollars, or the most part of those
It's
dollars?
first come, first served. It has nothing to do with location, nothing. And the other thing that I found interesting was that the construction process can be phased. So like with Bach, that building in Victor, he's redone his roof, and then he's going to move to redo the floor. He could apply multiple times for the same building and first go for the roof and then reapply for the floor
As he moves through the
as he
phases.
moves through the phases.
And you could also extend, if I understand tax credits, if he got X amount this year, he could use 50% of it this year, and the following year, use the rest.
Yes, once he gets the tax credit, he can do whatever he wants with it, and including selling it.
Okay, I'm gonna take a little relevant detour here to the city website. And when we go up here to government, we scroll down to Historic Preservation Committee. This is this committee's page. So here, we've got several of the posters that rotate through. Information about when we meet, our agendas and minutes, and then bylaws, procedures, and then a clear link to tax preservation or preservation tax credits. And then remember our workshop we did last September, all those PowerPoints, they're all here under this resources button. So you can go back and
Get those.
re-listen to, they're all part of our list here of, 2023 preservation workshop. So all of those presentations those folks had for us, they're all accessible from the city's website.
And one last thing I want to say about this CPI, don't forget about CPI. They exist to help people with situations like this.
Colorado Preservation Inc. And were they present at Saving Places as well?
They put the thing on.
They
They're
put
the
the
ones that
thing
put it
on.
on.
So they have resources. And is Andreas part of CPI?
He's History Colorado.
He's History Colorado.
Mhm.
So CPI has a separate set of resource individuals
Mhm.
for similar type programs.
They could help you do whatever you want to preserve the building.
It basically steer you in the right direction.
So they would be a resource maybe for us and for Boss as well.
Mhm.
Did you guys come away with any contacts at CPI
didn't at CPI.
specifically?
We didn't do anything with CPI. It was just something I just now happened to mention.
Sure, okay, well, it should keep them
I
as
just
a-
don't want you to forget that they exist.
they exist, yeah, okay. So.
There's a big push, big push nationally to convert these empty historic structures into housing projects as well. The housing situation all over the country is in such a
Sure.
bad way. So, but that's not
To convert which structures?
Any commercial downtown type structures,
yeah.
they're just looking to help,
Yep, so there's a fair amount of funding for projects like that.
probably old shopping malls as well as downtown buildings and anything,
Mm-hmm.
warehouse spaces,
Mm-hmm.
anything that's not being, it's underutilized.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, do you have anything else to add? You went as well.
Oh, to that, no, I just, like I told you in my email, I went to a lot of classes concerning national designation. That was what interested me most, but
The other one I went to was the Main Street one. And then I found out after that we are not in that Main Street program anymore. So why is that?
We haven't officially lost our designation, but we're probably about to.
your
Yeah.
picture, Antler Alley made their
Yeah, it was on the,
film.
yeah. I thought it sounded like a pretty cool program.
The city leadership has changed multiple times since the decision was made to pursue becoming a Main Street organization. And that value is no longer a value within the leadership on this current council.
Okay.
And hasn't been since Robert got on, Rusty got on, Hillary and Kelly, it changed on a dime.
Yeah, there were, I was Googling some of the smaller communities that were represented there, and they're no larger than Woodland Park.
No, and we are one of round 20 Colorado designated Main Street communities. At some point in time, the two Main Street community signs we have on the Main Street probably will have to come down. But we have not committed as a municipality because of council. We've had support with staff and had support with city managers that we've had, but no one has championed it like the city manager that was here at the time. We also had an economic development director who championed it, along with 2 or 3 council members that championed it. That's the only reason we pursued being a Main Street organization.
Yeah, it seems like a good opportunity.
Well, it is, and there are 3 levels: candidate, designate, and graduate. And we did reach designate with a lot of hard work, but we at one point had 45 volunteers involved in that organization, but it's totally decimated. There's only 2 of us.
Election's coming up next.
You know,
April.
but here's the thing, they've changed the rules with Main Street. And one of the things is, our community, when we started out, gave money to put towards the Main Street program. Those monies were cut back, cut off, but the Main Street program now says thou shalt have a full-time Main Street manager, no more part-time. So Woodland Park would have to, effective January 1 of this year, so Woodland Park would have to step up and fund a full-time manager. And it was to be tucked up under an economic development office, but that whole thing has gone on the back burner, and that part of that was tied to the STRs and lodging tax. And so it's kind of
punishment for Frank, actually.
It's actually lost its focus, and there's a lot of realities in there, and the story you hear now isn't totally accurate, but it doesn't matter because it's only reality. So, it's really sad, and it's really.
Yeah.
But it officially has not been punted.
It's interesting about the full-time manager.
Yes, they've really and they've changed the reporting requirements, jacked them up even more. So you've gotta have a person.
Well, no, and the reason I'm like groaning like that was, I worked in Brush for 18 years, and they were one of the inaugural Main Street communities, and they did make it to graduate status, and so I provided staff support to different committees during that tenure there, and it is a lot of work.
It's a ton of work, and you gotta file quarterly reports, and they have to follow certain formats, and you have to engage certain aspects of the community, and it can be a good tool, but you gotta work it, and you gotta have volunteers to support it, because that's what it's made up of. Anyway,
And Brush is smaller than Woodland Park, so we had a variety of things and activities, and at a certain point, we were dealing with volunteer fatigue.
Yeah.
Just because, when you're, the worker bees are pretty amazing in communities, and the dedication is phenomenal, but at a certain point, you need reinforcements.
and the city of Victor, they've got a Main Street program, and they're still working along, and they're doing pretty well. Small core group of 3 or 4 people, but they are still,
To enable them to get all those nice streetlights.
yeah,
put up.
they've done some things up there that have really helped the community. Those they have. So, but anyway, yes, it is. I think so. Okay.
Oh, and I
thank
do
you.
have my
Yes.
receipts, by the way. You don't give those to me.
Thanks, Karen. Okay, thank you for going, both of you guys.
$1 million.
And learn more. Okay,
Good thing we got money in the budget to pay for that.
Like I told you in that email, going there, no matter what class I went to, just being the camaraderie, it just reinvigorates your dedication to preservation and galvanizes your dedication to preservation, just being with all the preservationists up there.
With all the old people, huh?
It's actually quite a
Young
few young
people.
people. too.
Young?
Oh, mostly young, I
Good.
would say.
That's good to
great.
hear.
That's good. That's great. So,
Like to see young people
They
get
have more
involved in
energy than
history.
the old people.
so we still have outstanding to decide, we've got our old May Preservation Month banner, but it's the wrong size, right? And it's
Put
kind of
on.
boring.
It's very boring.
So we perhaps should consider a new one. Do we have any examples of artwork of anybody who has some banners that maybe we could rip off and reuse from another community? is-
What's the banner for?
Well, May is Colorado, isn't that
History Month. or-
History Month or Preservation Month?
History Month.
What's preservation?
May is.
Preserving.
What do we call it? Preservation Month.
It is, May is preservation.
And
I thought it was Colorado History Month.
That's what I think.
I think it's Colorado History Month too. What is it, Larry? Okay, so there's gotta be a community we can rip off an idea of a nice bright colored, rip off and reuse.
We're talking to the artists who, copyright issues here.
Yeah,
We
I
can't
know.
make any
Did you come
recommendations on
across,
that.
did you come across anything when you were up there?
I mean, they got cool pictures here. No. Here's anything.
Is there anybody that wants to take on trying to find some examples of what we can, we have to make it smaller too than what we have. Or
What size it?
is it 12?
I don't know off the top of my head. It's in last year's minutes because we did this once before. And since
May.
it's smaller in size, you don't need as much artwork.
Where's it going?
On
In
the,
between the logs at the front?
One of them for 2 weeks is at Jerry Goods.
Mhm.
And the other
one at Walgreens. And that those things that I had signed had the square footage that was allowed.
Well, we
which
were doing that
grandfathered
because of
in.
the sign we had, the
Yeah, it was
banner we
big,
had,
it
right?
was
That's the,
bigger. and it
that's
was-
the existing banner
Yep.
in terms of that location. But for the kiosk down there at the entry, you know, into the city,
The digital sign that's down here too, right? Underneath the sign, and there digital sign or sign that stays there and then all the banners go underneath. You talking about coming in on 24?
I don't know that there's a,
There's no digital, it's
Oh.
all just two banners
Oh.
underneath that
Yeah.
log.
Oh, okay.
structure.
I see lights when I go by.
probably the houses behind.
Anyway, May is Colorado Archaeology and Historical Preservation.
And if you type in historic preservation month banner samples, then a bunch of stuff comes up. Great, right?
I think, I favor simple and easy to read.
Has to heat in your face at 35 miles an hour while you're dodging the rest of the traffic.
Correct.
And you take your risk at turning your head to see it. That's what it has to do.
Sounds like you
Artistic
just
merit
volunteered.
aside.
You're
You're getting even.
Can you guys just take a look at it and maybe some examples of what it could be?
Yeah, what is the length and you said 12 feet long. Where's the square footage limitation is gonna translate to a
Here's
height?
a simple one. National Preservation Month, and it's just put some buildings from Woodland Park on there and just change it up. Put Miriam on it.
Who's the technician now to apply to for signs? I've lost track. It keeps changing.
Yeah, no, tell me about it. Well, my permit tech is kind of my first contact. His name is Grant. But he's not actually issuing sign permits. CJ's been kind of picking that up.
Dory did a whole bunch of it as well, because I came and picked up all the stuff from her and returned it to her. So I don't know if that helps.
I bet you, if we reach out to CJ and find out what the banner size needs to be for the entrance.
And as a temporary sign, if that matters. It's not a permanent sign application.
I'm just thinking 12 feet was the length and it's.
It's bigger than you think in order to be able to read
Read
at speed.
This is probably 12-foot table. Yeah,
We can find that out. I'm not able to locate it.
okay.
I think it had the existing one that was grandfathered in and then the what's allowed on that
Right.
form that those
Right.
people
And if
signed.
we can get a new banner, we budgeted for it, if we get a new banner, updated version, then we won't have to get permission at Walgreens or
Oh,
Jerry's
you-
Place anymore.
Oh,
We'll
because
replace it.
you, who would be making it, fabricating, finalizing the artwork?
Meeting,
Well, I don't think we're locked in anywhere. I know a lot of the groups around here will go down and use Spence at Canyon Signs, but he's not necessarily the best quality as far as holding up. And I think a lot of them have gone online. And I forget the name of, I can find out who I was told, but I don't think we're limited to local.
The online banner people are fabulous. I've made 2 banners online.
Hey,
And they're-
I just
they're
bought a bunch
fast.
of signs.
So there's the grommets and then cutting the air holes so that the
Yep.
wind can blow through. The
I can
considerations to
recommend
make.
buildasign.com.
And again, Spencer advertises in the
Yeah,
local
some money.
newspaper and donates to causes. Online.com does it or whatever.
Exactly,
Yeah,
so
you're
it's a series of trade-offs.
Depends on how late in the game you do it. Online people would turn it around pretty quickly, but if you want it to. Yeah, but I don't know what the longevity of those are either.
I got some up at the rodeo grounds in Lake George, have been up all year long for 4 years now and look just as good as the day we put them up.
That's good. Cool. Okay. Oh, so we'll get size from CJ,
That all has to be done to go hang it up on May 1st, then I take it.
ideally, yes.
So what was that about not having to do it at Walgreens or the log?
See, this banner that you've been getting permission to do is an old banner that's been around a long time and does not fit the size requirements for the current locations where we normally put it, like what we're talking about. And so we've just been using it and limping along with the 2 locations that you can get as temporary permission, Eric. So if we finally spend the money and get a new sign, a banner to the correct size, we can just put it at the entrance coming into Woodland Park with a period of time.
I see.
Type of thing.
Mhm.
And the banner is just, I mean, it's pretty sorry. I mean, it's just.
Walgreens make an exception to do a whole month, because I know they only do like 2 weeks. at a
They
time.
would do 2 weeks.
2 weeks, they
And
stuck
then
to that.
Jerry
Yeah.
agreed, after talking to him 2 or 3 times, agreed to do 2 weeks.
Okay.
But I don't think either of them wanted to do a month.
Okay, and you had those conversations again this year?
Not yet.
Not yet,
No,
okay.
I was gonna get the forms, but I might not need them if we're getting back.
I think hold off, because I think we thought maybe we could go forward this year and get a new banner.
It'd be easier to read on that and that sign down at the.
Yeah.
Facing in.
Does Walgreens make banners? They do a lot of photography stuff, or
Not that I'm aware of.
Talking about the banner with the 2 posts and the
Yeah.
little roof on it has. the
That I thought
solar
had a red. I thought it had.
That's what that is.
Those,
Solar panels and lights.
That's what
Not
the-
a digital
It's the
display.
Welcome to Woodland Park by McDonald's has the digital.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you sit and look at that one, yeah, and you see that.
Yeah, the
That's
other
right.
one's down there.
I know
Just
the other
look
one,
at-
but it doesn't have the lights
yeah,
on.
that other one is a
Big,
rectangular format though. It's a different kind of.
Yeah, it's
different
on a
format of the sign.
Pedestal light.
Yeah, it's
Sign.
5 feet wide maybe for the sign, actual sign.
I remember measuring it one time, but yeah, it's pretty big. I think.
No, it's not 12 feet though.
No, oh my gosh, no.
Well, if you can bring some more information back in for the March meeting, we'll have plenty of time. Plenty of time.
It's always.
Okay, state opportunity, grant opportunities, is that a Kimberly update?
Kind of between Kimberly and I got nothing done on that. So I really don't have anything new to report.
Okay, and then Templeton restoration plan, you're still just getting some communication and trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah, Greg, well, now that the golf course is for sale, it might change a little bit, but that driveway that I had sent him, you know, that I just proposed, that's why I got the PUD, because it goes right to those 8 lots. And I sent him an email and said I went to Flying Cloud resident, and they said no on the easement, because that was his response was, no, can't you go get one of the neighbors of Lucky Lady up on Lucky Lady to let, and I said no. So I sent him an email, said no, but reconsider the the slope makes more sense by the fairway of 2. Makes sense. I mean, I don't see what that would, what I had come up with was not good, once I looked at this. So is that, yeah.
And if you look at that map, Pioneer Cemetery is clear as a bell.
It
When they did, whoever did the construction. Up on that.
I don't know if anybody, wants to look at that, but there's the cemetery and then there's 2. On. And, yeah, so I was able just to report that was a no, because it was told no.
So,
I wouldn't even think that would be a possibility of any property owner in my surveying years of just, hey, can we put a road through here? Gosh,
Anyway,
no.
we could get permission to nominate it for designation prior to easements and all that stuff. Do you think he would consider that?
He seemed interested when I talked to him whenever that was a year ago or so. We had some nice conversations and he wanted to do the right thing at that time. But this last email was real short and blunt, and can't you ask somebody over there, basically? So I don't know.
Well, if we
Maybe.
drop the easement thing, okay, if we
Yeah,
drop
that's
the
what I'm
easement
saying.
thing
And get permission.
and
to-
just say, hey, could we, for the plat, and what you've learned about designation with, whichever powers to be, if we could just
Just go to
designate.
local to begin with,
Yeah, do a
That would be
local designation without access to it.
yes. Just to get it.
Especially,
declared and
especially if it's for sale. Wouldn't
Yeah.
you want to,
Get this owner
Make that-
now.
Yeah,
yeah,
so maybe that's what we need to work on, Eric, maybe.
Okay, I'll wait, just if I
with
hear back,
Steve,
yeah.
And just the idea of drop the whole easement, getting access to it as much as going forward with a formal designation, or local landmark. Local landmark or designation, which wouldn't be, require them to do anything on their part, other than just acknowledging the fact, per that plat, that there's this thing called they wrote Pioneer Cemetery. Yeah. So you guys,
I might ask for some wording on that when I do talk to him, or email him back.
Some wording in what way?
The designation of how to approach or how to ask them that. So that would be for local designation for cemetery.
Local historic designation.
Okay.
Which is free.
and Steve's right here to, as a
Yeah,
resource for us
yeah.
to utilize to help, and we'll get away from asking permission to do anything other than just to designate.
That's pretty important right now, more than the easement right now, I think.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Well, that's
$6.2 million is what it's listed for with a cemetery.
6.2.
6.2.
Okay, anything else on right now? That's good, so we'll keep moving on that. Member reports. Eric, do you have anything else to share?
Do not.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else right now?
okay, so I have one thing to say. I looked at the minutes and I was nominated for vice chair
Larry nominated.
without my knowledge and unanimously elected.
That's you should be absent.
I didn't get the
Who
vote.
seconded that?
And Eric seconded it, and I know Larry nominated me. And at some point, I was told by Eric that it was dependent on my acceptance of that nomination, and I do accept it.
Thank you.
Thank you. What a roundabout way to do that.
Very sporting of you.
Hey, I'm officially a politician now, so I gotta talk.
Larry, yeah. Yes.
The patron lunch has been moved to March 3rd, same time, same place.
Third or fourth, it's on Sunday.
That's on a Sunday, it's the 4th.
That's the one that was supposed to be.
That's the one that was supposed to be
I wondered.
The 4th,
they
March 4th, Sunday.
March,
patron lunch.
the 3rd is a Sunday.
So the third is a Sunday? So I stand corrected, you're right, it's the third.
Thursday, Sunday.
It's the third, it's on a Sunday instead of Saturday.
Sunday, March 3rd, patron
Yes.
lunch.
Same place,
Same
same time.
program, same time.
What time was
Navajo co-workers.
New,
it? Can we still sign up? Because I had, ended up doing that thing.
Yeah.
Couldn't go, and now you didn't do it at all,
what, no, everything got pushed out. So I'll send a message out again and see.
huh? Okay.
Okay, so
Thank you.
I can,
My wife and I'd love to go.
okay, all right.
I'd like to hear the Navajo talkers.
Okay.
So it's at noon on the 3rd.
12:45 is eating, 1:30 is the program. In Kent Valley, the Navajo co-worker.
And you don't need your reservations if you're not eating, is the
You
way I
do
read
not
that.
need reservations if you're not eating.
So the
You just
program's
come.
at 1:30.
Okay, that's what I was gonna do. And I didn't even know it was canceled. I just assumed.
They did.
Mm.
And if you have nothing to do on March 2nd, at 11 to 12, there's the bird talking again. every 2 weeks, there's gonna be a bird talker. John LaFleur is doing bird talk, it's been well
John's a good
received.
guy.
So March 2nd, another bird talk. Cool.
Where's that?
At the Immer Cabin,
At where?
Immer, IMMER, Immer Cabin at 11. It's 1 hour, no charge, learn about the birds. John is doing a wonderful job. He does writing in the newspaper of bird, wildlife. Cool. That's
Where's
all.
are both of the programs there?
Starts at 11. John LaFour's program starts at 11. The program for Navajo Talkers is at 1:30. Cultural Center. 1938 building. Designated.
Donna will do an introduction and everything.
That's all online. You got that already?
Yeah.
You got the-
We hustled and we even got the date changed. As soon as I found out that they canceled it, oh man, I was able to catch it.
It worked out. That's all I get.
Okay. I don't have anything new. So, Steve, you have anything to add?
The home demonstration ladies' bronze plaque came out beautiful.
Did it?
Yeah, it's about yay high or so, yay wide.
And you got the stone or
The
the?
stone I already have, and it's a beautiful stone. Oh. And they're gonna do the logo of the home demonstration club on the front of the stone. And it'll be outlined like a headstone lettering.
It
so
was
it'll be
March something.
March
March
8th.
8th, yes.
March 8th, so that's gonna
1
occur.
p.m.
So. March 8th. Right, it was March because of.
International Ladies
Ladies.
Women's Day, and March is Colorado Women's Month. I believe, I can't remember the exact title.
Okay, yeah.
Archaeology and preservation. Women's archaeology and
Well, if we
preservation.
get 2 more feet of snow, we'll just move it to another week.
Well, I was just talking to Cindy this morning, and we're gonna do something on that day, no matter what the
Regardless.
snow's doing. The only thing that would prevent the dedication was if there's a lot of snow there and the stone people can't get down to the dirt, and they gotta dig down the far and lay some sand, and then set it. If there's too much snow piled there, they won't be able to.
Frank, anything to share with us?
I was gonna share the award we were given to Donna, but we didn't do that, so I won't share that
No.
until we do it.
Keep that quiet, keep it quiet.
But no, I did not realize that the weather canceled that.
That's
so
right, the weather
I'm very
canceled
very happy about that.
Yes, so we're not, so let's keep that under our hats. It's still,
Okay.
that's still. a
Do you have
secret.
it? Do you have the award?
I
How's it
do.
look?
I don't have it,
Oh, you
Pat has it, but I've seen a
Okay.
picture of it and I don't
Looks
have it.
really good.
Yeah, it looks
Good.
great.
Women's a good number for it.
Well, that's, we did this. Yeah, that, the patrons lunch, yeah. Which is. It will be a total surprise. to me that day.
Oh.
On March 3rd, yes, which is Sunday, because we could not get the Saturday. over there, So we had to move it to Sunday, from what I understand. Oh, man. Karen,
Just thank you guys in advance for your patience, since I'm like between people. Team members changing, we're recruiting and trying to fill vacancies, and I'm the one doing the minutes the next time. It will not remotely be the Dory's standard or even what Bert was doing, but I'm trying to get the essence and do the best I can for you guys. So just thank you for your patience, and hopefully in another month or two, we'll have another part-time or another full-time permanent tech on staff who I can task with some of this in terms of support for this committee.
It's hard to do the minutes like you're doing and participate in the meeting.
Luckily, you didn't need much from me this time, so and it's like reminder phrases for me that I can backfill into a sentence. you know, that.
Okay, so our
That's
next,
all that is.
next meeting will be, you know what, on the city's website, there's a I think we need to update our bylaws. In our bylaws, we talk about the first Monday of the month, and then move it to the first Tuesday of the month. I think, and there's one other thing I spotted in the bylaws that needs some housekeeping, and I can't remember what. But we probably should visit it. If you guys get a chance, just read, they're not very long. Read through them. Sometime, get on the website. But
Yeah, no, I saw that the other day.
You noticed that, yeah.
Well, especially the meeting dates, I think it does give us the flexibility to change it. Where I'm not like in a giant hurry, but things are shifting, is the bylaws actually get blessed off by city council, so it's not just this committee.
Correct, no,
So
I mean, we would
it's
have
like
to
a-
submit it to council for approval, I get it.
And it took the Board of Adjustment like 2 years to get theirs updated and
Oh, well,
through city council, so.
they're not
I
that
mean, it
bad
doesn't mean we
today.
don't try, but you know.
Okay, very good, so our next meeting will be the first Tuesday of
March
March.
5th,
So March 5th is the next.
yeah.
So that'll be after. lunch.
As an aside, did you ever figure out how to get Steve on our special historical consultant? You know,
We
Woodland
can,
Park,
we can actually
Expert.
decide a committee, and he can be a committee of
he's a
one.
committee,
He can be a committee, but we
Good.
should probably enter it into the minutes.
yes.
And as, with the purpose of what his role would be, or what his title would be, or something to that. Yeah,
Job description.
Was I supposed to be doing something for you anyways? Something that we talked about at the last meeting? Poster,
go this late
banner,
next
or something, the girls, the women of.
I'll have the,
But we kind of
candidate
went by that,
forum,
but went on
oh,
to
yeah,
it.
that's right.
which
on
will be
there, so,
downstairs at 5 o'clock.
we're done with that. It was just a question of any other input or action on the poster that's done, accepted and published now. If that's-
Yeah, I remember something about the women, notable women of the past in Woodland Park or something.
Well, that was an extra, aside to go with, Women's Month, which was entertained briefly as,
As a
one of
subject.
the posters.
Yeah,
We did not pick a topic yet for a poster.
no, but we,
Not for next year.
no,
not for
but we
24.
talked about that.
Oh, actually, that would be a consideration, and go with it further and see what recommendations you may have as well, because it's wide open for, 24.
We talked about Pioneer Women, didn't we?
We did, and we could also include the home demonstration group in the Memorial Park, and kind of, since it's gonna happen this year, and you've made all that happen, Steve, we could, this might be a good year to focus on the females. I don't know. All right, we're done, we're adjourned, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
5:16.
Forgot my phone.